We're in the Gemara and Daf Lamed Ches, Samud Beis. Today we begin 3 lines from the bottom of the Amud where it says, Heichi Dami Macha. So the Gemara is discussing a person that's establishing a chazakah in a field by being there for 3 years, but the previous owner has the option to be moiche, to protest, and then you can't establish a chazakah. Heichi Dami Macha. So if you're coming to be moiche, what is it exactly that you have to say? And the Rashbam here and most Rishonim explain that this is a case where you're being moiche shaloi befana. We had before here a machlokes, when you're being moiche, you have to do it in front of the person that's there in your property, or even if you're far away, you could be moiche with not befanav. So the Gemara is discussing when you're not befanav. You're in a different place and you're saying this machat to people, and you want the message to get back to the person in your field. What is the lashon you have to use? Amar Rav Zvid, so Rav Zvid says, Planye gazlanahu. If all you say is that person, he's a thief, that's not called a macha. Because even if the message gets back to the one occupying your property that so-and-so said about you that you're a thief, he's going to say, he's just bad-mouthing me. He's just saying I'm a thief. What? He didn't say anything. There's no reason for me to be worried about this, or to be careful now with my star, not to lose it. He has to say, Planye gazlanahu. So-and-so is a gazlan. The nakat leila roi begazlanusa. He's occupying my property, but he stole it. And you have to also add ulamachar tavanale bedina. And tomorrow I'm going to bring him. I'm going to invite him to a dintaita in the bezdin. That havi macha. That is considered to be a macha. So here the Rashbam actually brings 2 opinions regarding this last line ulamachar tavanale bedina. Do you have to actually add that point, that tomorrow I'm going to bring him to bezdin, or not? The first opinion that Rashbam brings from the Rabbeinu Chananel, you must add that point, because that makes it serious. You're not just bad-mouthing him. Even if you add, not only is he a gazlan, but he's occupying my property with gazlanis. But if you don't add and say, and I'm coming to get him, I'm coming to take him to Dintaita to kick him out of this field, so the guy could still say you're not serious. He thought you just coming to badmouth him. But if you add then it's serious. But then the Rashbam himself brings from Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yokar that he says that no, that L'macha Tavana Lebedina is not really necessary to add. Once you added the words that Noket La'aroi Begaz Lanusa, then it's enough. You made it clear that you're not just bad mouthing him as a gazlan, you're saying, and he's occupying this property Begaz Lanas. If you didn't add that line of La'aroi, my property that he's living in is Begaz Lanas, then you would have to add L'macha Tavana Lebedina together with what you said in the beginning that he's a gazlan, then it would work. So the Gemara is bringing that last line if you did not say that Nokat La'aroi Begazlanusa.
What about if it's befon?
If it's befonov, so then it's you don't have to say specifically this nusach with all these details. Even if you just come and tell him, what are you doing here? You're a gazlan. So it's clear. The person can't say that he didn't understand what you meant. You're telling it to him in his face. You don't have to say this nusach.
But he's saying, what are you doing here? So it's the same thing.
Okay, so I don't even know if you have to say that. Even if you just tell him, you're a gazlan. You understand that you're talking to him, being in the karka, so it's self-understood. Talk to Gemara weiter. Omar loiteimru lei. If this person that's making a macha not in front of the person, he's making a macha in front of other people, he's far away, and he tells those people that he makes the macha in front of them, don't tell him. Don't tell the person that is actually occupying my property that I was meiche. So Amar Rav Zvid, so Rav Zvid said that's not a macha. You said don't tell him. You told the people that you made a macha in front of them, don't tell the person that's in my property about this macha. So how does that macha work? The whole point is that the news will travel to the person there, but not in this case when you told him not to tell him. However, Rav Papa says no, it will be a macha because he told the people he made a machat in front of them, don't tell that person himself directly that I was moiche. He didn't say, don't say anything about what I'm telling you, not to anybody. So therefore we say, chavra islay, and chavra islay. A friend has a friend, and the friend of the friend has a friend. So they'll tell this to someone else, and that someone else will eventually tell someone, and it'll reach back to the person that's occupying the property. Now, how about if the case was Amrulei lo yamrinalei? If you make a macha in front of people, and those people say we're not going to relate the message back to the person that's in your field, we're not saying anything to him. Amar Rav Zvid, so Rav Zvid says they said we're not going to tell him. So how is this macha effective? The message is not going to get back to him. Now again, if Papa argues that all they said is, we're not going to go and tell that person directly this message, but they're going to share others about what they heard. And therefore, through friends, the message will travel back to him. So how about even more? Omar lahu, the person that's being moiche says, not only don't tell the person that's in the property, don't allow a word out of your mouth. Don't utter a word about what I'm telling you now. Amar Rav Zvid, says Rav Zvid, here for sure, he's mamish said, don't utter a word about what I'm telling you. So it can't get from one friend to another. There's no way it's going to travel. The news is going to travel back to the person in the field. And here Rav Papa doesn't argue on this. Amrulei, how about if the opposite happened, that the people that he's making the macha in front of them, they said, Loi mafkinan shusa, we are not going to let a word out of our mouth. They're saying that we're not going to say anything to anybody. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa says, Haka Amri lei mafkinan shusa. They made it clear to the one that's meicha, we're not speaking to anybody a word about this. So he should know that macha is ineffective. But regarding this case, Rav Huna B'rei Rav Yeshua Omar, Rav Huna B'rei Rav Yeshua argues and says, Kol milse, the leiramya alei de inish, anything that's not something that is important to a person to pay attention, to keep what he said, Amalo v'lava daite. He'll end up slipping and saying it, and even he's not going to pay attention. He's going to end up saying it to someone. So here, when they said, we're not uttering a word to anybody about this, it's not something which is really important to them to keep this a secret. So we're going to rely on the fact that eventually they will tell somebody, and the news will travel back to the person that's in the property, and therefore it is a good macha.
Let me ask a question simply. Well, if we're telling, how is this different than Lashon Hara then?
Let's see about Lashon Hara in a moment. Gemara is going to bring it up. Okay, this is not Lashon Hara. Well, I'll address it in a second. So the Gemara weiter. Omar Rav Nachman. Rav says in the name of Rav Nachman, Macha Shalei B'Fanov Havi Macha. That we paskin that a macha that a person is making about someone that's occupying his property, you don't have to be there in front of him, you're far away, that macha is effective. Rav Nachman. So Rav asks Rav Nachman from what we had in the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Ches. So there it brings what Rav Yehuda said. Amar Rav Yehuda, Lo Amru Shalosh Shanim. The reason why a macha is only established after 3 years is not because you have to wait the length of time of 3 years to prove that you're the owner. Really, when you're machzik in a karka, this is how the Rashbam explains Rav Yehuda's opinion. The moment you're machzik in a person's karka, even just for one day or for one moment, right away it's a chazakah. Why? Because the owner should have been meiche immediately against you if it's his. And if you're there and he's quiet, really it should be a chazakah right away. So why is it 3? Why do we wait 3 years? So the reason is because what's if the owner of this property is not present? He's far away in Aspamya. And then it's v'yachzik shana, so you're in the property for a year, v'yelcha v'yediyu shana, and now people start realizing what's going on over here, that you're using this person's property that left, and he's not here, so then they go to let him know a year, and v'yavel l'shana acheres, and give him another year to be able to travel back, and to come and be moiche in front of you. So over here, you see that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that macha shaloi b'fanav is not a good macha, and this person has to come, is what? Macha shaloi b'fanav is not a good macha, and he has to come back and make the macha right in front of you. If a macha shaloi b'fanav is a good macha, lama li lemesi. Why does the owner have to come and make a macha against you? Leisav hasam, he can sit there wherever he is, at duchten his place, and v'limchi hasam, let him make a macha there. Right, so according to Rava, the fact that you see that Rabbi Yehuda says that he has to come, so that means that until then, your chazakah is not going to be a chazakah. Okay, but the Rashbam says though that Rava is saying that since you don't have to make, from here you see that you must make the macha dafke b'fanov, so therefore Rava holds that you can't be machzik, you can't make any chazakah. Impossible. If the person is in Aspamya, and you come and occupy his property, you can't make a chazakah, because it's hard for him to come, it's very far away. Rabbi Yehuda says you could make a chazakah. Well, that's why we give him 3 years, so that someone should go and let him know, and then we wait until he can come back. Okay, but according to Rava, what you see from Rabbi Yehuda, the point from Rabbi Yehuda is that you can't establish a chazakah when a person is so far away, because the chazakah has to be dafka in a way that the one that you're occupying his field is here, he's in front of you, and he could be moicha. Okay, now the Rishonim here, the Rashbam, all address the obvious question on this Gemara. Why is Rava asking a question on Rav Nachman from what Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah? In the Mishnah there was the Tana Kama, the Chachamim. The Chachamim, the Gemara explained before, held that Macha Shalei B'fanav is a good Macha. So why is he asking a question from Rabbi Yehuda and not bringing a raya from the ratio of the Mishnah from the Chachamim? And the Rashbam answers that Rava must have had a different shot in the ratio of the Mishnah, and the Rashbam doesn't explain. Mefarshim explained that Rava must have held that even the Tanakam in the Mishnah also holds that Macha Shalei B'fanav is not a good Macha. The Tanakam of the Mishnah spoke about Yehuda and Golol, that if it's Yehuda and Golol, then you're occupying a field in Yehuda and the owner is in Golol, then it won't be a Chazakeh. According to Rava, if the owner was in Yehuda, but not the same city where this field is, and you were occupying it, and he's Meicha in a different city, it's not going to be a good Macha. And he had a different shot in the ratio of the Mishnah, what the Tanakam meant by Yehuda v'Galol. So he's bringing it up Yehuda because he held that really Chachamim agreed to this, that the Macha must be B'fanav. So Rav Nachman answered him, even from Rabbi Yehuda himself, you also don't have a raya that the Macha has to be B'fanav. Because Hassam, over there, what Rabbi Yehuda was saying, I can tell you, was Eitzah Tova Kamashmalan, that he's just giving good advice. He's not coming to explain the halacha of the Macha and how a Chazaka works only if he's B'fanav. He's just giving good advice that the Nesiv Nishkal Ara Peda, that if someone's occupying your field and you find out that this is happening, you better come back and be Meicha B'fanav and come and get what's yours. Come and take the fruits and the produce that this person is eating in your property. Okay, so in other words, as Rashbam explains, we have a Ganev that's stealing your fruits and all your things from your property. If later you're going to want to bring him to a Dentaira and get back what he stole from you, you're going to have a hard time. So he's just giving a Eitzah Teva that you should come and get back your stuff, and we're giving you this time to come and take it. But the Macha does not necessarily have to be B'fanav. Now says the Gemara, Rav Nachman, from the fact that Rava asked Rav Nachman about this, so it's Miklal, it seems, that he disagreed with what Rav Nachman said, that a Macha, not in the presence of the one occupying your property, would be a Macha. In fact, the Gemara about that, it's not true because Rava himself clearly said, Macha, Shalei B'fanav Havi Macha. Being Meicha, not in the presence of the person that's there in your property, is a good Macha. Says the Gemara, Basa, the Shamim, Rav Nachman, after he heard that Rav Nachman held this, so, Svara, second, where am I? Basa, the Shamim, Rav Nachman, Savra. He accepted it, he accepted what Rav Nachman said. Okay, says the Gemara, Ashkechino, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, the Talmid of the Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina found the students of Rabbi Yechanan, Amar Lahu, so he said to them, Mi Amar Rabbi Yechanan, did Rabbi Yechanan ever say, Macha Bekama, when you're being Meiche, in front of how many people do you have to be Meiche? When you're being Meiche, in this case, and we're talking over here about a Macha that Shalei B'fanav, in front of how many people do you have to be Meiche? So one of the students, Rabbi Barabba, said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Macha b'fnei shnayim. But Rabbi Yechanan said that you have to make the Macha just in front of two, in front of Adam. Rabbi Vo, Rabbi Yechanan, Macha b'fnei shleisha. Two is not enough, you have to make the Macha in front of three people. So what's the argument about, whether two people or three people? Says the Gemara, Leime b'derabbe baravona kamiflagi. Shall we say that the argument here is based on what Rabbi Baravona said? Anything about anybody that was said already in front of three people, lesba mishom lishne bisha. So after that, there's no issue of then sharing that with others. There's no issue of lashon hara. Once it was said already in front of three people, so this is something that is public knowledge, and everybody knows about this. So if you talk to someone else about this after that, so then you're not saying lashon hara about someone, because this is something that everybody already knows about, and it's just a matter of time before everybody will know about this. So over here as well, we can say that mandama b'fnei shnayim, the one that says that you have to say the Macha in front of two people, less like the Rabbi Baravona. So he doesn't hold of what Rabbi Baravona says. Why not? Because what's the whole point of the Macha? The point of the Macha is that it should become public knowledge, and the news will travel back to the one that's in the property. So if he says that Macha in front of two is enough, what does that mean? That he says that news will become public and the news will travel back even by two people. You don't need three people. So Rabbi Baravona says by three people it becomes public knowledge, and this opinion says no, two is enough. And the one that says in front, you have to make the Macha in front of three, Islay the Rabbi Baravona. He agrees to what Rabbi Baravona says, that it has to be three people, and only then will it become public knowledge, and the news will travel back to the one that's in the field. so the Gemara will explain that we don't have to say this, but there are some Rishonim that try to say that the pshat in the Gemara here is that making the actual macha is lashon hara. When you're saying that this person's stealing my property and that this itself is a lashon hara, and therefore what it's connecting it to what Rabbi Barav Huna said, whether you have to say dafka in front of 3 and only then it's not lashon hara, or in front of 2 and then it will be lashon hara. That's what some Rishonim tried to say, but they say that that's not the correct pshat in this Gemara, because making a macha in front of anybody about a gazlan that's occupying your property is not lashon hara. Person is stealing from you, and you're coming, at least that's what you're claiming, that he's stealing from you, and you're not just coming to badmouth him or say anything bad about him. That's not lashon hara.
Tell it to him right away. Tell him straight in his face.
But he's not able. He's far away.
That's his problem.
Good, but he has a big problem that someone's stealing from him. So he has to. But it's not lashon hara though. But the point is, if you're far away and someone's taking advantage from the fact that you're out of town and you're on vacation for a month or a year or 2 or 3, and he's occupying your field, it's not lashon hara to be moicha. So the pshat in the Gemara is like I explained. The question is, at what point is it public knowledge that the news will travel back to him? That's what it seems like the machlokes here is. Okay, so the Gemara says, like, that's not necessarily the pshat of this machlokes. The kula alme islu de Rabbi Barav Huna. Everybody agrees to what Rabbi Barav Huna says, that it only becomes public knowledge when it's 3 people. Here the argument, what Rabbi Yechanan held, is the following machlokes, going back to what we learned before. The one that says that macha is done in front of 2 people, that this macha is not even happening, not in front of him. You have to make the macha in the presence of right there in front of the person that's occupying your property. So the only reason you need Eidim is because later on, if you want to prove that you were Meiche, you have to have Eidim to prove that. So it's enough to have 2, but there's no reason to have 3. You're saying it in front of him. The one that says that Rabbi Yechanan said that it has to be done in front of 3, that your macha is being done and not in front of him. So you're far away and you need the news to travel. So then you have to have 3. Like Rabbi Barav Huna said, it only becomes public knowledge in front of 3 people. Or the Gemara suggests we can say another pshat. Everybody agrees that making a macha not in front of the person is a good macha. But here the argument is as follows. The one that says that it's enough to make a macha in front of 2, Savar holds, it's enough to have Eidim. So the Rashbam's pshat in the Gemara is, even though in such a case you're not guaranteed that the news will travel back to this person, it's not like in front of 3 where it's definite that it becomes public knowledge, so much so that there would be no issue of lashon hara when you share something in front of 3, as Rabbi Barav Huna said. But in front of 2, it's enough that you can rely that the news could travel back to him. 2 people heard about it, and one friend tells another friend. It doesn't mamish become public knowledge, but it's very possible that the news will travel back to him. That's enough to make it a valid macha. And the one that says it has to be in front of 3 holds, it's not enough that the news could travel back to him, but gilui milsa be'inon. It's necessary that you should say it dafka in front of 3, and then it's something that definitely becomes public knowledge. Only then is it a valid macha. So the Gemara brings a story about this. Gidl bar Minyumi havile machuyasa lemchuye, or mechisa lemchuye. Gidl bar Minyumi had a situation like this where someone was occupying his property and he had to be moiche about this. So he found 3 of these Amiroim, the Haviyasvi, that were sitting together, and he made the protest in front of them for this property. L'shana, a year later, he came in front of them to make his protest again. He's still occupying my property. I want to protest again about this. A year later. So they told him, you don't have to make a second macha a year later. Because Rav, this is what Rav said. Once you made the macha during the first year, when this person is occupying your property, you don't have to make the macha again a year later. Another version is, it's not all of them that told this to him. Amongst them was Chiya Barav. So Chiya Barav was the one that told him that that once you made the macha the first year, you don't have to make a macha again. So now, what does this mean? So now, from what Gemara is saying up until this point, it sounds like once you make a macha once, that's it. You never have to be moicha again. So the Gemara says, Reish Lakish said in the name of Bar Kapara that v'tzarich limchais b'soif kol gimel v'gimel. You do have to make a macha in the end of every 3 years. If you make a macha and then after that another 3 years passes, so that macha, this first macha is good for 3 years, but then after that another 3 years passes without any macha, so then he will be able to establish a chazaka. You made a macha a long time ago, but then you gave up on it, or because you may have sold it in between, or so then after that the chazaka will be a good chazaka. So Toy, but Rabbi Yochanan disagreed. Rabbi Yochanan was wondering about what Reish Lakish said. V'chi gazlan yesh lechazaka, a person that's a gazlan, could he then come and establish a chazaka? So the Gemara clarifies the lashon of Rabbi Yochanan. How does he use this term gazlan? You're saying that the person that's occupying the property is definitely a gazlan. Someone was meicha against him, but you don't know that he's a gazlan. So the Gemara says, Gazlan sol kedaitoch. Are you referring to him as a gazlan? How do you know he's for sure a gazlan? Ela ki gazlan. What he meant to say, ki gazlan yesh lechazaka, a person that there was a macha against him, that you already said that he is a gazlan, and therefore he should be on notice. He should know already that he has to be careful with his star, because there's somebody that's challenging your ownership. There's someone that has aid and that he was the previous owner and he's challenging your ownership. So now that it's a known fact that someone is challenging you, can you now say that I lost my star and and therefore I can establish a chazaka? Once you make, so Rabbi Yochanan is saying, once you make a macha once, it puts you on notice forever that you can't lose your star anymore. Amar Rava says, Hilchas tzarich limchais b'soif kol gimel v'gimel. We pass like a shlokish, the name of Bar Kapara, that you do have to make the macha once after every 3 years. Tani Bar Kapara. So in connection to that, Bar Kapara also said, if you come and challenge someone's ownership in a field, and then chazav v'irer, you come and challenge his ownership again a year later. Chazav v'irer, you come again a third time. So you ma'ara. So as we said basically here, that you meicha once, then you have to be meicha according to Bar Kapara. You meicha after 3 years again, then you have to be meicha again. So you will meicha more than once. If when you challenge the ownership of the person that's in the field, you're saying the same time as you said in the first time. Let's say the first time you came, you meicha, you said, this person stole my property. I never sold it to him. So then it's going to be a good chazakah. Anyway, then the itter that is, sorry, I meant to say the macha that is. Your macha is going to be a good macha. Every time you are meicha, you're saying the same thing. So then, ein chazakah. Yeah, you can't establish a chazakah. But vim lav, if you ma'arer, you challenge his ownership, you meicha the first time, and then you come the next time, 3 years and after that, you come and you ma'arer again, and you say something else. For example, the first time you said that he's a gazlan. I never sold it to him. He went and occupied his property. And then the second time around, you come and say, it's a mashkin. I gave it to him, but I gave it to him just as a mashkin, but it's not his to keep, and he's supposed to give it back to me. You're saying a different error. You're saying a different taina. Then, yesh chazaka. Then he's able to establish a chazaka. You change from what you said in the beginning, so then that means that your error is a joke. What you're saying is not true. So in such a case, it will be a good chazaka. You're being made that what you said before is not true, so then it will be a good chazaka.